I asked Amanda, did it occur to you that he might wake up and say, I don't want to be here? And she said, every day.
Evening update. I have heard so many of you over the years refer to Dave as a machine.
A strong kid. I mean, he could climb, he could run, he was amazingly coordinated.
On the river.
He's a manimal. His quads were like one quad were bigger than both of mine put together.
If there's ever a situation, Dave in his kayak is the one that you want to be there.
On skis.
Dave and I met at Copper Ski Patrol. I'd see him show up and I'd be like, yes, you know, it's gonna be a good day. Dave's on the hill.
On the ice.
He would go out there and just skate hard, tire the team out, tire you out just looking at him, but he wouldn't stop.
A person who has dedicated his life to helping others.
He loved being a flight nurse.
He saved a lot of lives. We still get today. Oh, well, he was my nurse when my wife was pregnant and made everything calm, and every flight that he was on, he touched her life.
Before the crash, we went on a Salmon River trip. Dave reassured me that I would do great, and I knew that he would watch out for me in his kayak. The first time that I did get stuck, he was right there and helped me to get unstuck. I'm going to promise him now that I will be right there with him when he gets stuck going down this rocky river that we are on, and we will get unstuck together. His strength, courage, and determination are beyond what you could expect from anyone. But Dave isn't just anyone. He's D-Rep. He got up early that morning to go skate the early morning skate out in Breckenridge at 5:30. So I got up and went to the gym. It was July 3rd in Summit County, and it was just bursting at the seams with people everywhere. How could you know? Yeah.
I was running a restaurant in town. I could see the plume of smoke from Main Street, Frisco.
911 was the address of the emergency.
Summit County Hospital.
Okay.
Helicopter down.
Okay.
Flight.
Is this a Flight for Life helicopter?
Yes.
It's obvious from the surveillance cameras that they were in trouble right when they took off. It was Dave, Matt Bowe, and Patrick Mahaney. Patrick was the pilot. Matt and Dave are both nurses. They didn't get very far up. They came down and it was a pretty violent crash. And within seconds of crashing, the helicopter was on fire. Dave was the first one out of the helicopter. You can see that he's totally engulfed in flames. Matt was able to get himself out the way the helicopter landed. He was higher up, so he actually wasn't where the fire was with the fuel spill. Patrick was trapped in the ship. And Jimmy Rhodes, one of the CT technicians from the hospital, when he ran out, he actually grabbed the fire extinguisher off of the hangar. And he was getting Patrick out. It took several attempts, and it's an amazing thing that Jimmy did. I mean, he got burned himself. He was able to pull Patrick out. Patrick was still alive at that point. They got him into the ER.
Oh, it was just turmoil. Each one was in a separate room. And I saw Dave laying on the table, and there was just remnants all over the floor because everything was pretty well burned off.
Patrick was in trauma 1.
And I ran up to his ear and I bent over and I said, honey, I said, it's Karen, I'm here, I'm here. He had a pulse for maybe about 45 minutes, and then it got weaker and weaker. So then I really started talking to him and letting him know that I was there. And I thanked him for loving me and for choosing me and telling him what an amazing father he was to his children. And I told him that I was gonna be okay, and that he didn't need to worry about me. After about 20 minutes of CPR, they held CPR and he was flatlined. We hugged each other, and she just said to me, I don't know how I'm gonna make it without him, Amanda. And I said, I know, and I said, I'm sorry. And I just kept thinking, this is gonna be me. Ron, one of the nurses that was taking care of Dave, came and found me, and he was a traveler nurse. I hadn't met him before. He said, Amanda, you don't know me, but I was taking care of Dave. And the last thing he said before we put him out and intubated him was, tell Amanda that I love her. He said, I wanted you to know that. And I thanked him. We had to figure out how we were gonna get to Denver. And before we left, I don't know why, but I needed to go see the helicopter. And so they took me outside, and it was already cordoned off with tape. And I looked around and I thought, well, where's the helicopter? I don't see it. And I didn't realize until later when I saw the video footage that I was looking at the helicopter. It's just that there was barely anything left. I mean, the doctors told me that he wasn't just the sickest patient in the burn unit, he was the sickest patient in the whole hospital.
He was over 90% burned, and so that's as serious as you can get. So he was on the brink of death from the beginning, honestly.
I've been a nurse for a very, very long time. It was probably the worst case I had ever seen.
During the early days, he was in a medication-induced state of sedation. He doesn't remember most of it, luckily, but I remember every minute of it. What do you do if you're 90% burned and you have no idea what the prognosis is going to be, what your potential recovery is going to be, and how long it's going to take?
We basically go through a discussion with the family about would their loved one want to go through all of the things that we're going to do to them, and that they may not then be able to maybe live an independent life. They may live in a nursing home, or they may live in a rehab facility.
Poor Amanda had to make those decisions for him while he was out of it.
And we didn't know if he wanted to live, you know? We didn't know if he would live a normal life.
They have a formula that they calculate for burn patients, and it's based on age, extent of the burn, and complications. And Dr. Richter told us that the formula came up with a negative chance of survival. And he said, Dave is obviously very well loved, and he's very fit. So I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm gonna give you a 10% chance that he'll make it. And I just curled up and I just started crying and crying. I didn't know how he was gonna make it.
To have him in that condition is unfair. You know, he was on a breathing machine and was totally covered. I grabbed his arm in his hand, and he was warm and he was breathing so, like, strongly. His body was working so hard.
He was fighting so hard to live, and I had his back. And I said, as long as he's fighting, I'm right here fighting with him. Knowing that Dave has such a challenging journey ahead of him that involves pain on so many levels is something that I'm really struggling with now. I may not be able to take the pain away, but we are going to go through this together, and that is what I keep telling him.
So Dave went to surgery multiple times that first week just to try to remove all of his burned skin.
The skin is an organ. It's your biggest organ in your body, and you will reject somebody else's skin. You have to take skin from your own body and graft it to the burned areas.
But when someone is burned like Dave, there really isn't much skin to use.
They took in, every bit of skin that they could take from Dave, even the bottoms of his feet.
He's, of course, going through infections and things like that because when you don't have your skin, bacteria, other things can infect you in your bloodstream. And he had so many episodes of infection. It was like every week.
So we would treat him, and the minute we stopped it, he would start to develop another infection. So for him, it was this constant battle of pulling him through one episode of sepsis, getting him way better, and then it happening again.
You imagine putting a loved one in surgery 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Imagine putting a loved one in 70 times.
And always living in that, is he going to die? Is he going to make it through this surgery?
To have no skin on your body and to go back into a washroom and basically be scrubbed down, which you had to be done because of the infections, that was pretty horrific. I'll never forget one of the first times he started spiraling so quickly and they were working so hard. Here's Dave, 90% burned with pneumonia, in septic shock. How in the heck is he gonna pull through this one? And he did. Dave endured another major surgery yesterday. The river didn't flip him, which is why I think he finally agreed to head downstream.
When I first visited Dave, it was like me visiting myself.
They told me that the largest burn survivor that they had had up to that point was 87%. Shannon Kelly, and I've met her, and she's an amazing, amazing woman.
I was in a medical-induced coma for 7 months. I had a 120% chance of not surviving. My message would be to remain hopeful and push the boundaries. So when I was in a coma, this is my mom telling me the story. There was a patient next to me that she was only like 20% burnt. And her room was always dark, no visitors, nothing. And she died.
There are evidence-based studies that show that patients that have really strong family and friend support do better. They survive more, they have less infections, they get better faster.
I think what burn patients need most is the presence of other human beings, knowing that they're there and they love you. Even when you're unconscious, you know that. You can feel that energy.
I did the best I could in the room to decorate it. So we had pictures and posters everywhere. Neighborhood kids made a big poster and we put it up behind his bed. It was interesting for the staff. I think it was helpful for them when they would look at pictures of us.
It gives us an idea of, the kind of man that he was before he got burned. This is an outdoor man. He rafted in the summertime, he skied during the wintertime, he hiked. He was a mountain man.
He wasn't able to really tell us that he enjoyed ice hockey and X, Y, and Z. It was through Amanda that we were able to see what kind of a person he was, and through his friends and his support group that would always be there.
Our good friend Neil Bosch, one of Dave's hockey buddies, came up with this ingenious idea of the DREP support team.
I said this years ago. We need Dave more than Dave needed us, you know what I mean? So, what do we do for Dave? So I literally had a marker and I hand wrote a heavy metal style lettering DREP. And I was like, that's it. From there, it just blew up.
We made t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and started selling those around the county to raise money for us.
People you didn't even know would, oh, hey, D-Rep, and they'd go, I got mine on. People knew what it meant.
So one day I got a call from a guy named Marty.
I just said, hey, we're a group called Dog Nation Hockey. We help out families, and we've heard what's happened to Dave, and this guy's gonna need a lot of money.
I didn't even know about Dog Nation. It was one of Dave's hockey teammates who nominated Dave. As soon as they got the nomination, Marty stepped in very quickly.
So I went down and I handed her a check for $5,000. She just looked at me and she said, are you for real? And I said, we are.
And he said, we're gonna organize a fundraiser for you guys. And it's gonna be a pond hockey tournament. We're gonna do it up in Summit County.
We need to keep you, Amanda, by Dave's side. We have to.
And he says, can we put D-Rep logo on our uniforms? I said, yes, sir.
And I'm gonna work on the details and we'll get it figured out, but we're gonna take care of you guys. There is a saying that you can dance with the river, but the river always leads. This river we are on is a force of nature that determines its own course, and we can only navigate it as best as we can.
On December 14th, I woke up. It was like a shudder going across my eyes. It was just from black to white. And I was awake. I didn't know where I was. I had no idea of passage of time. I didn't know if it had been a couple days or a week, 5 years. I had no idea. I remember an impact. I can't tell you anything about it. I just remember an impact. I just remember fire being everywhere. It got on the ground and started rolling, and there's still fire everywhere. I didn't know which way I was rolling. I didn't know if I was rolling back into the fire or away from it, I guess. It wasn't really until we got into the ER that I started feeling things. And I don't know why, but I was on that backboard, and I just had my arms up. And I could just see the skin sloughing off my hands and my arms. I told them I was in pain, and they were trying to get an IV on me. I was so burned, they were having trouble finding locations. And then they gave me some ketamine, and it was black for 5.5 months.
When he first woke up, it was terrifying. He looked me straight in the eye. And as soon as he did that, I knew. I was like, okay, he's back. He had the sensation that he couldn't move and he couldn't talk.
Eventually, I knew I was in a hospital, and Amanda was there telling me what was going on, and I was scared to death.
And he started mouthing.
And I told her I want to die. And I kept saying that. To be basically trapped, locked in, not being able to do anything, but still alive. That was my worst nightmare. As a nurse before, yeah, we can keep people alive, but should we?
I stayed with him for the rest of the day, and then he finally was so exhausted and he passed out. And I cried harder than I think I've ever cried in my life. Cried and cried and cried and cried myself to sleep. This was gonna be his decision. And if he decided that he didn't want to live, then I was gonna respect that. I was just hoping so much that that wasn't gonna be his decision.
I sat down like I always did.
The next morning, again, he looked me in the eye and I said, okay, he's still here. I said, do you remember yesterday? And he said, yes. And I said, do you still feel that way? And he shook his head, no. I was just like, oh, thank God.
We were able to get my speaking valve on, so I was able to discover that, yes, I could speak at least.
I think actually it was at the bedside when we first put the speaking valve on Dave's trach, and we were waiting to hear his first words, and it was right to Amanda, you know, I love you.
She still got you and me. And everybody says that she's
He had two people that he wanted to see pretty quickly, and that was Matt Bowe, the other nurse, and Karen Mahaney, the pilot's widow. He wanted to make sure that they were okay.
So I got off work and I drove there. He wanted to tell me how much he loved Patrick. That meant the world to me. And I felt like Patrick was hovering close and he was helping Dave fight through this.
Dr. Wichter laid everything out for Dave, and it was brutal. And he said, Dave, you shouldn't be here right now. I can't tell you whether you're ever going to take care of yourself again or whether you're going to walk. I can tell you it's going to be a really long, hard road. And I asked Dave, I said, I told him what he'd been through. I told him how many times he had come so close to dying. And I said, you need to tell me, what's the stopping point? And he said, if my heart stops, I'm done. It was hard. It was a battle every single day. No human being should ever have to experience that amount of pain.
Maria's on the hill, she was outside of her eyes.
His body had to relearn to do everything.
Physical therapy, working with him, occupational therapy, speech therapy. We did much longer sessions than we do with most patients with him.
And we are those first faces and those first voices saying, time to get up.
A lot of people with these big burns is that they have this roller coaster ride of recovery. And so once you start making gains, they're probably going back to surgery. And then you're starting from scratch again.
Songs in my pocket just crumble.
You know, I'm not going to kid you. There are some hard days. There's no freebies. There's no gimme days. I felt like I had to make a choice every day. It's like, do I just lie in bed or do I get up and keep fighting? Amanda talked to me about this group. I learned they're going to put on a tournament for us up at Copper Mountain. I just remember images from the party.
Set your dash for the coast, watch the sand grays burn.
The amount of energy we are getting from this event is truly lifting me up right now. Dave and I are both so grateful for everything that you are all doing for us.
This was Summit County coming together. This was skiers, this was shop owners, this was helicopter pilots, Dave's family, friends.
It's good to know that there's plenty of people around, especially in that hockey community, that will rally whatever you need, whatever help you'll need. You know that people will help any way they can.
We were hoping to do around $40,000, and when all was said and done, we were able to give David and Amanda a check for $85,000. So we far exceeded anything we ever would have thought we would have done.
I mean, there were tears everywhere. It was just made me feel like, you know, Dave's in good hands.
Won't you sing me something for the dark, dark, dark?
A week later, all of Dave's teammates came to visit Dave and Amanda. I asked everybody in the room, if you can stand up in front of Dave and tell him who you are and tell him what last weekend meant to you. Tough guy after tough guy after tough guy lost it. I'll tell you one story that came up a couple times that was unreal. And Dave's team got to the finals and they were playing on Sunday and they were losing and there was about 6-7 minutes left in the game. All of a sudden, we heard this humming and everybody stopped. Up through the canyon comes a Flight for Life helicopter. And then it stops over the rinks and just hovers. And the helicopter left, and D-Rap's team went on to score 6 straight goals and win the championship. It's neat.
Marty and Dog Nation brought people in to spend time with me. Peter McNabb was in there when I was super sick. Peter was in there watching playoff hockey with me.
He had a long way to go if he was ever going to get there. And I have never really ever said this before. I never thought he'd live. I never, in my wildest imagination, thought that he would make it. It just absolutely looked impossible.
Just to even get out of bed was, a production on its own. It seemed like that took all the effort that I could muster. And I'd collapse back into bed and sleep for a day. It took me 6 months to learn how to swallow again.
And we'd be in there for an hour sometimes, just having him swallow. It was painful. I mean, everything hurt all the time.
Anguish in his eyes and his face.
Those ice blue eyes.
The tears would be flowing. He would be grimacing, and you never heard him utter a sound. And when they would finish, without a doubt, Dave would say, "Thank you." They're walking out feeling like, my God, that poor guy went through hell, and he's thanking me. That was Dave.
My angels, they poured their whole heart and soul into our situation, and it didn't go unnoticed.
The therapists were amazing about taking advantage of any situation they could to get him out of bed, get him out of the room when it was a possibility. Going outside the first time was in January.
We finally made it where he was out of the bed and he was in a wheelchair and got out of the hospital. Even though he couldn't walk, he was out of the hospital. He was breathing fresh air for the first time in over half a year.
Of all the things that have surprised me in life, I walk in and I said, "Where's Dave?" And they went, "Oh, he's..." So I put my stuff out and I come to the window, and honest to goodness, it was like, I can't even describe properly the feeling. But Dave was out in the yard with Amanda, and they were sitting there. And I went, son of a bitch, he's gonna make it. That's what relationships are supposed to be. He had no shot of making it without her.
She was there for me every day. I was in some deep, dark places, and every day I couldn't wait for her to show up, and she could tell me the same story, and I'm sure she did. She probably told me the same thing 100 times. I'd hear her voice somewhere, and it would just sort of guide me back to the hospital.
It was done out of love, plain and simple. I'm not going to let him go. I love him too much. And she didn't.
I became pregnant midway through Dave's hospitalization, and so I remember thinking, like, who's gonna walk first? Like, is it gonna be my baby or is it gonna be Dave? Dave won.
To see him, the toughness, and not a macho tough, just a genuine determination to be all I can be.
My biggest fear was that I'd have to be cared for every day. So for me, every step I could to get some independence, that was a big goal.
Well, I'd ask Amanda, it's like, can you ask the doctors, when's he out of the woods? When do we know he's gonna live? When is that moment? And she would say the day he walks out of that hospital.
Day 397. Even though he was still using the walker, he was determined that he was going to walk out of the hospital unassisted.
I'm walking out, and he did. And it was marvelous.
Oh my gosh. Yay!
And he's out.
There's such a sense of relief, but at the same time, it's like, man, am I ready for this?
I try to have everything really accessible because sometimes I have to grab for things pretty quickly.
Dave and Amanda left the hospital. They were ready to go back to life. It wasn't logistically possible because they had to come follow up with us pretty often.
We were still in the fight and still in the thick of it, and there were a lot of ups and downs with Dave's health during that next year.
Keep in mind when someone is in the hospital and they have infections all the time, and we had to give him very toxic antibiotics that hurt and damaged his kidneys.
We all hoped for the longest time that his kidney function was going to return, but it didn't. And so then we were facing lifelong dialysis. The blue line is connected in under the sink, and that's what pulls the water into the machine.
Dialysis keeps you alive, but as Dave would say, it's no way to live.
With the yellow line, ends up going through the back of the machine into the black line.
If he can't go for a hike, he can't be gone for 2 or 3 days. Even if he goes on an airplane, got to do the kidney dialysis wherever they go. It shocked me what a production it was.
I was fortunate enough to have Amanda who could do my dialysis at home, but it was 5 nights a week for 4 hours at a time.
Everywhere I went, I told everybody, my son needs a kidney.
I was devastated when I wasn't a match. After everything everybody's done for us, how could we even, expect somebody to give up an organ?
His life's going to change if somebody's willing to donate a kidney. And lo and behold, a young man named Matt Martinez, who didn't know Dave, but he did know Dave's mother, decided to donate his kidney to Dave.
I wanted to do something that not only gave Dave his life back, but gave Amanda, friends and family, all their lives back as well.
Matt Martinez, our angel, who came forward.
Who is this guy? It's like, we got to meet him. He's a father of 2, and one of his children is legally blind. He's got his hands full at home, but yet still he wants to do this. What he did for us is give us our life back. My health has skyrocketed, and it's immeasurable from what it was before. The course marshal kept ushering us ahead.
Dave and Amanda reached out to me, and they said that Matt ended up getting a knee injury and need some help, and they know he's never going to ask for it. I said, why don't we make it part of the golf tournament, and we can make it a really cool surprise, because he's not going to know.
I thought I was just going to go play golf.
In the water.
We asked all the teams in the tournament to help raise money, and it would be another pay it forward.
Nice shot. Right in that guy's backyard. Whoa! Let's go.
So, Maddie, what you didn't know is the envelopes today were for you. And so, we would like to present you a check for $24,000.
I mean, what a feeling to be able to give back to this guy who's done so much for us. That's part of what we want to do, and just to thank him and thank others like him. I'm not sure if you know the impact you have on the people that you help.
You don't take life for granted. Be happy be a good person, help others. We're just gonna continue to work on getting Dave to a spot where he's healthy enough so we can do more stuff.
I want him to be back on the team. I want him to be on the D-Rep team. He's ready. He's ready to do it.
One of his big goals all along is I want to get back on skates. I want to get back on skates.
He talked about it, talked about it, talked about it.
It gave me something to strive for, you know, get on that ice and try to hold a stick and just be out there.
I remember our physician friend said, Dave, wiggle your fingers, and Dave would go. Wiggle your little finger, Dave would go. Dave, move your big toe, and Dave would go. You'll play hockey again.
It was like seeing a person who just got to the top of Everest.
Yes.
Good game, you guys. Hey, good game, man. Nice playing, you guys. Good game. Good game. Nice game.
Life is a long journey, and you never know when something is going to disrupt that journey.
Good game, you guys.
But if you've got people there that care, they'll find you.
They have a big tournament every year, and the big focus of the tournament is a survivor game for people who've gone through some pretty big life experiences.
Ryan, almost a year to the day, was in a terrible accident up in Canada in a campfire accident where there was an explosion and it burned this man over 50% of his body. It put him in a coma for 9 days. He worked his ass off in the gym, on the ice, a lot of that time by himself. When we heard this story about Ryan, you can't help but think about David, right? Right. And when I told Dave that story, he said, without hesitation, I want to pay for his trip and his expenses to come out here. Thank you, David.
You've traveled a really long road to get here. For most human beings, the injuries that you suffered would have been terminal, and the recovery insurmountable. But you are tough as nails. And with Amanda by your side, you've managed to defy all odds. So tonight, we're pretty excited to welcome you back to town.
Mr. Dave Repsher.
You mean a ton to our community and to council, and we're just glad to have you home.
You know, I grew up in this town, and this town has been in our hearts, and it's been in our soul, and I can't thank you guys enough. This was the goal all along, to be home.
Dave is a man who has left it all on the field, as they say, serving years for the Summit County Ambulance, Copper Mountain Ski Patrol, and Flight for Life.
I've told so many people I wish that everybody could know what it feels like to experience as much love as we've received. We are so happy to be home now, and thank you for this official welcoming home. And we're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
These last days have been a journey like no other. Throughout everything, the love and support from our incredible friends, loving family, local community,
co-workers, medical team, and even complete strangers has been unwavering. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you all for sharing this journey with us. We are eternally grateful. We now launch on a new river.
Maria's on the hill, she was outside of her eyes. A $5 wine has a blanket inside. Lay up the pages on a traveling bed. Watch the blood of Christ mountains, or they all turn red. And howl at the half-moon radio queen. She's all smoke, she's all nicotine. The songs in my pocket just crumble apart. Won't you sing me something for the dark? Maria's got wings, she's got legs for the sea. Captain's cold, and I know for me. Wake up, Marie, for the season turns. Set your dash for the coast, watch the sangries burn. And howl at the half-moon radio queen. She's all smoke, she's all nicotine. The songs in my pocket